call the Committee on Budget to order. It is Tuesday, April 4, 2023. It is 9:05 a.m. and I would like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Wire, Council Vice Chair Kia Aina, and Committee Member Toba with us today. There are no members participating remotely right now, and so moving forward with our announcements. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will identify you by your last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raised hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. Some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're also watching the proceedings on Honolulu, please mute your television at any time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all of the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call, unless unanimous. Therefore, I will be calling for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audio-visual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact. Therefore, the member must announce beforehand if they will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. First up, we have item number 1. It is Resolution 23-26, which accepts a gift valued at $2,200 from the Association of Local Government Auditors to offset registration and travel expenses for one employee of the Office of the City Auditor to attend the 2023 annual conference in Baltimore, Maryland from May 5, 2023 to May 10, 2023. With this, we have our City Auditor with us, Arushi Kumar. Ms. Kumar? Oh, and also I would like to welcome Council Chair Waters.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, I will explain this resolution. So one of our long-serving auditors, our audit manager, actually Van Lee, has been the recipient of an award from the Association of Local Government Auditors. He's received the Lifetime Achievement Award for his career of service to the local government auditing profession. And as I thank you for his service, and part of the award is that they pay for his hotel and travel and registration for the conference.
Members, do we have any questions for our City Auditor? What is this, Ms. Kumar, what is this award?
The Lifetime Achievement Award is every year the Association of Local Government Auditors solicits nominations for 3 or 4 individuals from across the country. So this was a nationwide search. And Van Lee was among the 3 total awardees for this year.
Okay. Oh. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Members, any other questions for Ms. Kumar? I would also like to welcome Councilmember Say. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kumar. We will now receive the remote testifiers. When I call your name on, we have no registered testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify on this item? Okay. Members, we are now in-person testimony. Any members, there's no registered in-person testimony. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify on this gift? Seeing none, okay, thank you. We will now commence with questions and discussion. Okay, thank you. The chair recommends that Resolution 23-26 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, next item, number 2, 2327, accept a gift registration and travel expenses valued up to $2,530 from the Government Finance Officers Association for one employee to attend the association's 2023 annual conference in Portland, Oregon, from May 22, 2023 to May 24, 2023. First, and up again, we have our City Auditor, Arushi Kumar.
Thank you, Chair. Another member of our office has been the recipient of a scholarship for pursuing his graduate degree in accounting and auditing. And as part of the award process, the Government Finance Officers Association has invited him free of cost to their conference in Portland. Again, that includes travel, airfare, hotel, and registration fee. So he can be recognized at the conference.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Okay. Members, any questions for Ms. Kumar? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. We don't have any registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to in-person testimony. Any others who wish to testify in person? Okay, seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Any questions? Okay, the chair recommends that Resolution 23-37 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Next item, Resolution 23-36 accepts a gift of travel and related expenses valued at $4,500 from the Association of Government Accountants for staff members for the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services to attend the AGA Leadership Training in Baltimore, Maryland from April 2023 through April 22, 2023. Members, we have a proposed hand-carried CD1 submitted by myself that makes the following amendments. And it is OCS 2023-0294/3/31/2023 at 8:40 a.m. The amendments are: A, it amends the title to reference staff members of both the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services and the Office of the City Auditor, rather than just staff members of the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services. B, amends the fourth whereas clause to delete the reference to 2 employees of VBFS. C, amends the eighth whereas clause to reference 1 BFS employee and 1 OCA employee. Amends the be it finally resolved clause to transmit a copy of the resolution to the city auditor in addition to those persons previously listed as recipients. E, it attaches a revised declaration of gift form to the resolution as Exhibit A. F, makes miscellaneous technical and no substantive amendments. All right, with us, we have both Director Kawano and, of course, our city auditor with us today. Okay, Director Kawano, or maybe Ms. Kumar, since it's the addition of the OCA employee.
Yes, thank you. The organization known as the Association of Government Accountants, we have a national chapter in Washington, D.C., and we have a local Hawaii chapter as well. And the national organization pays for staff members to attend this conference this year. Unfortunately, one of the original attendees, who is an employee of BFS, is unable to attend. And one of the staff members in OCA, who is an active member of the Hawaii chapter, has been asked to attend in her place. And so we wanted to clarify that it wasn't just going to be a BFS employee this year. It was going to be OCA and BFS.
Okay, thank you. Director Kawano, do you have anything to add to that?
Good morning, Budget Chair. I have nothing to add to it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions for either our BFS director or our city auditor on this measure? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. There are no registered testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify on this? Okay, moving forward to in-person testimony. There are no in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this? Okay, thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Any further questions? Okay, perfect. Okay. With that, the chair recommends that Resolution 23-36 be amended to the hand-carried CD1. Any discussion? Okay, any objections? Any reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 23-36 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Next up, we have our Resolution 23-34, providing a declaration of intent with respect to multifamily housing revenue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $105 million for the purpose of making a mortgage loan to provide financing to Kumohale Mauna Kea Venture LP, a Hawaii limited partnership for a multifamily rental housing development to be known as Mauna Kea Tower. With us from the administration, we have Mr. Craig Harai, Executive Assistant with the Department of Planning and Permitting. Hi, Mr. Harai.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
I'm Craig Hirai. I'm in charge of the private activity bond program implementation at DPP. Prior to my coming to the city, I was the director of finance of the state of Hawaii for 3 years, and prior to that, for 6 years, I was the executive director of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. So I've been involved with the private activity bond program for 9 years. I was brought on in part to implement this program at the city. With me today is Darren Uweki, who's assisting DPP on this. He's the former Housing Finance Branch Chief at HHFDC, and he basically ran this program for the state. My understanding is that we're going to be asking for a deferral of this resolution because it was requested that we make some changes, and we haven't had a chance to get those changes in. But my understanding from Bond Counsel is that the inducement resolution, which allows the reimbursement of issuer and developer expenses from the bond proceeds, can be combined with bond authorization reso, which will hopefully be scheduled for next month. So that would be the plan, is to combine them and proceed with that. I think having said that, do we have some time? I think I distributed some material, which is the HHFDC for action approving the low-income housing tax credits for this project. And if you'd like me to go over that, I will.
Okay, one moment. Let's have members have any questions regarding the request for deferral, and then maybe I'll start it off. For the request for deferral, do we have a timeline for the inducement resolution?
Well, I think we're requesting that it go to the Housing Committee maybe on May 4th, and hopefully if it's passed from there to full council on May 17th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, members, any questions before? And are members open to hearing about the private activity bonds and the project as well? Okay, all right, we can do that, but we can also ask questions afterwards about this. Okay, perfect. Mr. Harai, who is going to put this up? Are the slides on here as well?
No.
No?
I think we were.
Okay, let me just.
It is public record, though. It's available on the HHFDC website from their March 9th Board of Directors meeting where it was approved.
Okay. We'll get the departmental communications number as well, so that members of the public will be able to access it, because as a public meeting, we need to have these records available as well. Okay.
Thank you, apologize.
Oh, actually, Mr. Harai, if you could just wait, we're going to put it on for you too. So to update members, and I would also like to welcome Councilmember Okimoto. So we are on agenda item number 4, Resolution 23-34. The administration is requesting for deferral of this and then an inducement resolution. The timeline for that will be hopefully in the May 4 committee on, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Wire, what is your committee name? I forgot.
Housing, Sustainability, and Health.
Oh, okay. And the Housing and Sustainability and Health Committee. Is that correct, Mr. Harai?
That's our desire, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to repeat it for the public. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, you may go ahead.
Good. So I think on the second page, this is a 32-story high-rise tower built in 1977. It includes 379 one- and two-bedroom units, and it's 100% covered by what's called a HAP contract, which is basically Section 8. And I'm going to kind of skip through this, but getting to the for action itself, which is further in. I believe Mr. Stanford Carr is here, the developer, so I think he'll be covering some of these other things. But I wanted to get to the for action itself, where the low-income housing tax credits are approved. On the first page of the for action, the length of affordability will be 61 years, and the area, all units will be at 60% or less of the area median income for that period of time. Could I get page four of the for action? Excuse me. Hold on. This page. Yep. If you look at page 4 of the for action, on the sources of funds, the reason for the private activity bonds of $105 million is because it is linked to what is called the 4% low-income housing tax credit, and the LIHTC equity generated by the private activity bonds will be $83,736,000, and that remains with the project once the bonds are paid off with a permanent loan, and that's the reason for the issuance of the private activity bonds for this particular project. As you can see on the uses of funds, there will be $32 million of rehabilitation work to the project and project reserves of $8 million and a contingency of $2.7 million. Next page, this for action and the low-income housing tax credits for this project were approved by the HHFDC Board of Directors at its March 9th meeting. We have done the TEFRA approval by the mayor, and we have done a declaration of official intent to reimburse project expenditures with proceeds of tax-exempt bonds, subject, of course, to the council's approval. But what's important here is if you look down, it says private activity volume cap years 2020 and 2022. It also says the expiration date is December 31, 2023. The 2020 private activity bond allocation from the IRS expires in 3 years. Therefore, it expires at the end of this year. I just started with the city in December, and we had to make the award of this and make sure that the projects that we selected were able to close this year before the volume cap expired. So that's why we have this project at 105 million and another project, Jack Hall Waipahu, at 30 million. We're going to use about 15 million of 2022 bond cap to fill that out in order to use all 120 million of the 2020 bond cap. So that's the plan, to use all of the 2020 bond cap before it expires. And some of you, I don't know if any of you know, but I mean, the Blangiardi administration inherited this 2020 bond cap from the prior administration. So we're doing our best to use it. If you looked at the source of funds financing stack, there's no city appropriation money or anything in there. This is all just, it's a resource that's available to us that we just didn't want to lose. And Mr. Oweki and I are available if you have questions.
Thank you. Chair has a few questions relating to the beyond this resolution, and I know we're talking about a resolution that's not even before us, but moving forward with an inducement reso, does that still relate to bond issuance?
Yes. We need the inducement reso. It's just that in this case we feel we can combine them, and it's my understanding on the other project too, they will be combined.
Okay, thank you. I just was wondering because for this reso is in the budget committee, right? And it's relating to bond issuance. And then, of course, you know, our vice chair, being both the vice chair, but also the chair for the Housing, Sustainability, and Health Committee. I'm not sure if you're looking to put bond issuance with an inducement resolution in a non-budget committee. So, of course, I know that you were talking about putting it out in May for the May 4 hearing. So just something to maybe think about and maybe discuss even with our council chair with the types of, with the distinction of referral to committees.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? For the private activity bonds, okay, we can also have Mr. Stanford Carr to talk about the project that the resolution refers to directly as well. Okay, thank you, Mr. Harai. Any last questions though for Mr. Harai? Okay, Mr. Carr. Oh, sorry. Before we get to Mr. Carr, Mr. Harai, Councilmember Say has a question for you. Sorry, I was too slow.
So, Mr. Hirai, can you share with the council what is the definition of a private activity bond? PAB.
PAB, the definition?
Yeah.
It's basically out of the Internal Revenue Code.
Okay.
The IRS allots roughly a little more than 300 million to a small state like Hawaii every year. And it's a tax-exempt bond, and typically we use it for housing bonds. And in that context, it comes with a 4% low-income housing tax credit, which is key in this case.
My question to follow up, Mr. Hirai, why did we not use this particular PAB in past years? What's the difficulty, or what's the problem?
Generally, in the past, the city returned it to the state, and with a couple of exceptions, 2020 being one of them. And typically, they ended up with HHFDC for multifamily housing and single-family housing. Either single-family housing mortgage credit certificates or multifamily housing, hula may multifamily bonds and low-income housing tax credits.
Okay. And finally, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, the last question. Does this PAB have to be, as far as this funding, be incorporated into our general obligation bond measure that we adopted last week? You know, all the different special funds in regards to bonds, would that have to be reflected, PAB, into that overall? Yeah.
These are what they call conduit bonds. The city's, just for FYI, the city's not liable on them. The project is.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you very much for educating me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Carr with us to talk about Kumahale Mauna Kea I forgot what it's called. Venture LP or the project, and also if you have any questions regarding the use of private activity bonds as well. Okay, Mr. Carr.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Stanford Carr, CEO of Stanford Carr Development and general partner of Komahale Mauna Kea Ventures. Mauna Kea Towers is a 32-story tower built in 1977. It was the largest HAP HUD contract in the state of Hawaii and still is till today. We have a firm loan commitment from FHA insured HUD loan for $126 million, and it's our intent to close on this bond transaction next month using private activity bonds and federal state low-income housing tax credits and reinvest $32 million of improvements to Mauna Kea Towers in order to preserve it as an affordable housing project for the next 61 years. We've already received a 20-year extension with HUD on the HAP Section 8 contract that expires in 5 years. So this project was at risk of being converted to market rate units had we not been successful in entering into a purchase and sale agreement. As Mr. Hirai stated earlier, the city has been out of this business as a conduit issue for over 22 years. I really have to commend the city, the council, as well as this administration to getting back into the business. Prior to the city re-entering as an issuer of private activity bonds, HHFDC, Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, was the only agency to go to throughout the state for all of our rental housing development financing for federal and state tax credit programs. This program was created in 1986 with the Tax Reform Act back then, and it's been responsible for the development of over 3.5 million apartments throughout our country. It's been a very successful program. We're glad to see the city back in as an issuer, and it'll really be a sustaining revenue source that will support the city's housing endeavors. So, thank you.
Thank you. Members, any question for Mr. Carr? Okay, we have Councilmember Toba.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Mr. Carr. You talked about this not being active for the last 22 years. So my question to you is there any risk for transparency, any risk to the city?
None whatsoever. This is all private capital purchasing the bonds based on the merits and the underwriting of the project. The bonds are rated by Standard & Poor's, or one of the notable 8 rating agencies. This particular transaction is a cash collateralized bond issue because we're using HUD financing. We will be going to market at bond closing to sell the HUD 221 Ginnie Mae loans, which we use as collateral for these private activity bonds. So it's only a matter of the private activity bonds being outstanding for about 2 years.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions relating to this? Okay, okay, Councilmember Say.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Carr, how would you address the issue of land tenure? May I know or find out who is Mauna Kea Palms Limited Partnership? Mauna Kea Palms Limited Partnership, are they the owners of the fee simple property that?
No, we're purchasing the property fee simple.
Okay, got it.
So
Right.
that's the prior owner, the seller.
Okay. In this particular Mauna Kea Towers apartments, where is that located? On the
1245 Mauna Kea Street, just on the corner of Mauna Kea and Kukui, across from Chinese Cultural Plaza and on the outskirts of Chinatown.
Okay, got it. And other than that, with this delay, will it increase your interest that maybe you have to pay?
No, it's just a timing. We're trying to close, we have to close this transaction before May 30th, May 31st. So we hope with this deferral to combine the inducement resolution and bond approval resolution in the May committee hearing, and then proceed on to the full council for adoption.
So this May 30th is an internal deadline by HUD, or who is imposing that deadline?
It's a deadline with the seller.
Oh, with the seller. So that's
Correct.
the Mauna Kea Palms Limited Partnership.
That's correct.
Okay. And one final question, which is a little concern, Mr. Carr. I'm just happy that you are trying your best to address the the rehabilitation work. Because wow, you're pretty reasonable if I see your handout, because the cost per square foot is about $136.66 a square foot.
For the renovation, yes.
And finally, will it also take into consideration all of the infrastructure? Because that particular tower is very old.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have thoroughly done our due diligence and property condition reports.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions, Councilmember Say. Any other questions for Mr. Carr? Okay, all right, thank you. Moving forward, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now proceed with remote testifiers. There are no registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Hold on one moment. Can we remove the presentation? Okay, thank you. All right. Is there any, now moving forward with in-person testimony? There are no in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Oh, okay. Let's move back to remote testifiers. We have, I see a raised hand from Ms. Angela Young.
Aloha, Akayakaka, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Just a minute. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to pull up the documents. So I'm just reviewing my notes from the State House Housing Committee from March 2023 about the bonds. So because I want to tell you factual information and not just hearsay or speculative information. So the private activity bonds is the most limited resource these days in financing low-income rentals. And there's a serious bond cap issue. So like the previous presenter said, Hawaii gets $360 million, that the state only gets half of that, which is $170 million. The city gets 37.5% of it, and then Kauai gets their allocation. So the bond cap is very limited. And for the 2023 finance cycle, received was 31 applications totaling a request of $870 million in bonds. So that is how much is being demanded. And so, you know.
Angela, thank you. Your time has run out. I've let you go 30 seconds over.
Oh, okay. And can I conclude or?
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Members, any other further questions for we are now in discussion. Oh, sorry. No, hold on. Let's go back. Since we went back to remote testimony, are there any other remote testifiers who wishes to testify? Please use the raise hand feature. Okay. Next, any other in-person testimony, people who want to provide testimony, excuse me. Okay, members, we are now in discussion. Any further questions, either for Mr. Carr or Mr. Hirai? Or Mr. Kawano, I'm not sure. Oh, no, okay. No. Okay. All right. With that, the chair recommends the action on resolution 23-34 be postponed to a date and time to be determined by the chair. And we'll work with Mr. Hirai or Director Kawano on the best timing for this, or if it's just gonna be the inducement reso. Okay, perfect, thank you. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered, okay. Agenda item number 5, Bill 2, which amends Section 10 of the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 relating to fees for a golf identification card. Members, we do have a proposed posted CD1. It is OCS 2023-0153/2/24/2023 at 1:33 p.m. submitted by myself. For your information, the amendments are listed on the agenda. Okay, with us from the administration, I saw. Okay. I see Deputy Director Kubota. Like I saw you, then you disappeared. Okay, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair, members. Tracy Kubota, Deputy Director, Department of Enterprise Services, in support of Bill 2. Basically, what this bill does is it increases the golf ID. It creates a fee. We don't have a fee right now to get a golf ID. And so we're creating a fee of $5 for anybody who signs up for a golf ID, and it increases the replacement card fee if you lose your card from $5 to $10. And for those who show up and want to golf but forgot their ID, there's a surcharge, and that's going to go up from $4 to $8. And so that's all this does. It doesn't increase any greens fees, but this is basically to cover increasing operating costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Deputy Director, I was wondering about the operating costs. Is there a new vendor of any sort? Or, of course, we know everything kind of went up over since the pandemic, but do we have a new vendor for this?
This is done in-house. So it's just a basic, creation of the card. So there's no vendor. It's just to kind of generate some funds to cover the cost for staff to make the card and the time it takes to address this.
Okay, and for the golf identification card, is there identifying or qualifying documents to receive such a identification card?
It's like the state ID.
Oh, it's like a state ID?
Yeah.
Or just a state ID?
It's no. It's the same documents that are required when you go and apply for a state ID.
Okay, and how many people do present the qualifying documents to receive a golf identification card?
About how many cards are made a year? About 4,000, yeah. I think about
5,000?
Okay, about 5,000 is what we do a year. But that's when we transfer to the new system.
Okay, so the new system in-house, but we weren't charging for new ones or replacement then?
Replacement, we were charging $5 if you lost a card. Now we want to charge 10.
So we were just kind of eating up the 5,000. Let's
For
say
the
it was
initial.
like 3,000 new ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Members, any questions to Deputy Director Kubota? Now we're all gonna apply for one. No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
please do.
I'm kidding. I don't know how.
Before we raise this, then it's free.
Oh. Oops. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. We don't have any registered testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to provide testimony remotely? Angela? Nope. Okay, just kidding. Okay, any in-person testimony? Okay, seeing none. Members, any other questions or discussions? Okay, I see about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us that can get that before it happens. Okay. Oops, excuse me. The chair recommends that Bill 2, 2023 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? The bill has been amended to a CD1. Okay. The chair then recommends that Bill 2, 2023 CD1 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Okay. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay. Next up, we have Bill 7. Wait, where's my testimony list? Okay. Amending Section 10 of the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 relating to resident admission fees for the Honolulu Zoo. Members, we have a proposed posted CD1. It is OCS 69/3/28/2023 at 3:13 p.m. It is submitted by myself, and for your information, the amendments were listed and have been listed on the agenda. With that, from the administration, then we have we have Deputy Director Kubota, and I see we have Director Santos as well.
Yes, with me today, Director Linda Santos from the Honolulu Zoo, Tracy Kubota, Deputy Director, Department of Enterprise Services, in support of Bill 7. So what this does is it raises the kama'aina, the resident fee for the Honolulu Zoo, $2 for both the adult and the children categories. The fee is currently $4 for the child, and it's going to go up to $6. And the adult category is going to go from $8 to $10. So this is only for the resident fee. The non-resident fee is something that we can, I guess, adjust based on administrative rule, based on a change to the ordinance a few years back. So we plan to also mirror the increases in our non-resident fee, but this bill is particularly for the resident fee.
Understood. Thank you very much. Sure.
Sure.
Vice Chair Kiaina.
Thank you for that explanation. Can I ask, what is the current non-resident fee, and what are you looking to propose via administrative rule?
So we're also raising the non-resident fee by $2 for each category. So the resident fee we didn't raise since 2011, and the non-resident fee we increased back in 2017, and the current adult non-resident is $19. So we plan to also raise that to $21.
Okay, and do you differentiate like the resident fee for keiki and then adults? So 19 to 21, is that for keiki?
Oh, sorry, that's for adults, and 11 to 13 for the keiki.
Okay, that's just helpful to contextualize so that I understand how you're treating this. That's all. Okay.
Thank you.
And then you can do that via administrative rule, but you need an ordinance for the resident fee. Is that correct?
Right. So before it used to be all under one, right? It was all by ordinance. And I think back in, I forget what year it was, they separated it out where we could then allow for administrative rule to adjust our non-resident fee, but they kept the resident fee remaining in council's purview.
And when are we expecting you via administrative rule to increase the fee for non-residents?
When we pass this bill, we'd like to also do the administrative rule so we can kind of have the fee increases happen
So
around the same time.
2023.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions? We also have our zoo director here, Ms. Linda Santos. Does anyone have any questions for her? No? Okay, well, thank you for joining us. Okay, oh, just kidding. Thank you, Councilmember Say.
Director Santos, I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you for the service that you are providing to the zoo.
Thank you very much for your support.
So maybe someday, Madam Chair, I could share with the members of the council that we could adopt an animal that you bring in and we name the animal. No, Emily. I just had a couple of serious questions for Ms. Tracy. The first question is, how has it been in regards to the promotional side of the activities by the zoo? Have you been talking with all of our major airlines in packaging a, Malihini type of fee like the non-residents, in getting the airlines to do you a favor by marketing the zoo tied into your relationships? I'm just trying to get you folks to think creative. The zoo would be one, the Marriott would be another one, that please support our local zoo and promote the zoo with the Malihinis that come to Hawaii. Or are you guys not even thinking like that? Or else, the other question was simply put, you folks must have the turnstile as far as how many Malihinis versus Kamainas visit the zoo. You have a breakdown on that?
Yes, we do. So to answer your question, we do work with promotional groups and tour groups that do approach the zoo for, group rates and for, I guess, like a number of people. However, since COVID, it hasn't been really where that has come back strongly yet. So we're still working to see when the visitors fully return, if we can restart some of the programs. Currently, the ratio of non-resident to resident is about, when we include the members, it's about like 60-40, yeah? About 60% to 40%, meaning the non-resident is higher. However, we do have the Zoo Society membership that has regular members that come frequently, included in the non-resident as well.
Okay, now the other thought for me was, now that we are post-COVID, is it possible for the department to contact HTA and the Airline Committee of Hawaii in doing some PSAs on the plane in promoting the zoo? As I arrive in Honolulu, there will be a presentation about the zoo. I'm just trying to see how we can increase the turnstile.
So in conjunction with the Honolulu Zoo Society, we did have, when you go to baggage claim and you see at the carousel, you have the video. So they did put out a Honolulu Zoo advertisement and that baggage claim area with the Zoo Society funds for our purposes to support the zoo.
Okay, not with the airlines. When we about to land, they can highlight.
Yeah, those are costly. So I think the more economical way was the baggage claim area for the reach that they measured. But we'll continue to, always talk with and look into options. Currently, we are working on a marketing campaign with an advertising tool that will be, I think, launched in the coming months. So we are exploring all options at this time.
Okay, so I can say this to you this morning, that the benchmark will be 50-50 by the end of this year. 50% Malihinis and 50% Kamainas, rather than the 60-40 or whatever you just stated.
Well, we're pushing for the non-resident heavily because they do generate a lot more revenue for the zoo. However, we embrace, like we said, the residents with our membership fees that the Zoo Society supports as well. So we're very fortunate that they do have a very strong following.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kia Aina.
You guys still sell shave ice? Okay, so Chair, I recommend that we have a mandatory site visit for all of the members, and I will buy you all shave ice.
We'll be happy to set that up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. We have from ROAR, Ms. Angela Melody Young.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of ROAR in support of the zoo, and of course, and sorry, someone's fighting behind me. So I'm just going to testify in support, and because the zoo is, it started in 1914, and they began collecting animals with a monkey and a bear and an African elephant. And it was for the children of Hawaii. And then they've started to build a worldwide reputation for its bird of paradise collection in the 1938 Kapiolani Bird Park. And it grew to include 3 large aviary complexes. So, it's on 42.5 acres of land, and it has a lot of educational exhibits, and it brings
Okay, Angela, your time is up.
to the community. So, yeah, we should support the zoo. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify remotely? Okay. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any further questions or discussion relating to this measure for the Deputy Director, Kubota, or Zoo Director Santos? Okay, thank you very much. The Chair recommends that Bill 7, 2023 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? The bill has been amended to a CD1. Okay, the chair then recommends that Bill 7, 2023 CD1 be reported out for second reading, and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations?
Yeah, no, just no reservations whatsoever.
Any
Just-
discussion?
Just comment. Is it possible on the second reading that we have a discussion on an incremental increase of every 5 years, rather than having the department come back every 2 years or 3 years or 4 years? It makes it easier for the council and all of us that if you have an incremental increase, let's say for 25 years at a 5-year interval, at least we know what our revenue source would be like.
Thank you. To discuss that, that's a great discussion. And Councilmember Say, if you would like to provide a proposal for this in the next hearing, that's how we can have the discussion. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, going back. So we had discussion. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, also we can move forward to Bill 9. We are in the beginning of our real property tax bills. Thank you very much, members. This is the beginning of our discussions for the next few items. These are just 4 or 5 out of the 26 real property tax bills that are in play right now. So let's move forward with Bill 9, 2023, addressing real property tax compromises made by the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services that require City Council approval. With us from the, first up, of course, we have Director Quano, but I would like to provide the introducer of the bill any time to present on his bill. Council Chair Waters.
Thank you very much. I appreciate having a hearing on this important measure. Members, every year I get complaints from widows or widowers who were not on the home exemption application. And what happens if your spouse or your partner or whoever else is on the homeowner's exemption passes away? The surviving member of the family now has to pay, in often cases, residential A taxes. And in some cases, it's a lot of money. And these folks are on fixed income. And I've tried to remedy this in a bunch of different ways. And what I've been told from folks who have tried the appeal process is that the appeal process does not provide for a mechanism to remedy that situation. So for me, I'm thinking the easiest way to do it is to give the director some discretion in order to make the decision to give relief to these people. And what we're talking about is our kupuna who oftentimes are on fixed income, don't have the money to pay the increased tax. And it happens every year. And I've tried now for 4 different times, I believe, to fix this. And this is the easiest thing I think we could do. Now, I understand that the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services does not want the discretion, does not want to pass this bill. But I would challenge them to say, how are we going to help these people in these situations? And I've asked this over and over and over. This is now the 3rd time I've tried this. And so far, nobody's come up with a way to do it except for this. So that's what this bill is for, and that's why I'm doing it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any questions to direct to me to ask the introducer of the bill? Okay. No, okay, all right, Director Quano.
Budget Chair Cordero, council members, Council Chair, Council Vice Chair Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. I want to comment that Chair Waters has my sentiment right. You know, I would prefer that we don't pass this bill in the current form. But perhaps take a look at modifying it a little, and I'll explain why. So currently, you know, I have the authority up to $500 to enter into concessions with taxpayers with Corporation Council approval. Typically what happens, or what has happened during my tenure is that if we do concessions, it will be for public good. So if we have a situation where we have a nonprofit, let's say, that is in a program that provides community benefit, it could be like low-income housing. If they, by oversight, miss a filing deadline to continue an exemption, but they had all of their documentation in place, dated appropriately, that would have allowed the nonprofit to, complete the filing, get the exemption, and such. If that were the case, and if there would be public benefit to grant the concession, we have come in front of council to do that. And I think I've done that a couple times over the last 2 years. With regard to individual issues with regard to filing, as Chair Waters explained, they have to go through the appeal process. My concern is that, and not so much for me, but going forward, raising a broad authority to do concessions up to the amount of $10,000, I feel reduces transparency to the public, because in the future, including myself, a BFS director working with a core staff could do concessions that may not be equitable, may not be totally compliant with the policies of both the administration and council. So my recommendation would be that if we introduce a bill to remedy the problem, we be more prescriptive with regard to the problem that's going to be remedied. And I would say we can't do this forever, because if we allow people to continue to ask for concessions over and over and over, it's going to take a lot of time. So give each situation one shot to do that, and maybe a time period, 1 year or something like that, whereby they gather their documentation and come in, to get their home exemption and residential status, reinstated. So that's my request. Make it more specific and prescriptive. That's all. I'll take questions. Thank you,
Okay,
Budget
members,
Chair.
questions for Director Kawano. Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Mahalo, Director. And
you,
appreciate
Councilmember.
Chair Waters' reasoning, and given that folks that lose a spouse often aren't in the frame of mind to be like, oh, I need to go check my homeowner exemption. So do you have any proposed language that would meet that need?
I would work with Chair and Chair's staff to, develop language. But if we do something, I'd like to be more prescriptive. Yes.
Okay, because this is just first budget committee for the bill, so it'd be coming back after second reading. So I was just curious, because I agree with Chair Waters in terms of that's an issue that comes up, and I see it as analogous to the nonprofit situation in the sense that you have an individual who otherwise would have been eligible, have all their ducks in a row, but just don't file for the exemption, right, because of extenuating circumstances. But mahalo.
Thank you, Council Member.
Okay, Councilmember Say.
Director Kawano, are there other municipalities that try to address this issue? Are there other municipalities or what the other three counties may be doing in addressing this type of an issue?
Personally, I don't know, but we could ask Administrator Takara, who's here, who has regular discussions with his counterparts at the other counties. So
Hi, good morning. Stephen Takara, Real Property Assessment Administrator. I'm sorry.
My question was, Mr. Takara, are the other municipalities or the other three counties have something in place like this?
Kauai has changed theirs from 500 to, I think, 5,000 about 12 years ago. But the other two counties, Maui and Hawaii, has theirs the same as us at 500.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Vice Chair Kia Aina.
I'm actually heartened to hear about the willingness on BFS's part to work on language, because this issue has been discussed, I know, for the 2 years that I have been here. And so I feel that there could be a resolution of this. So I support any effort to allow for those who, for no fault of their own, to be able to remedy that. So what you're recommending is that you just rectify the situation as opposed to compensating them, right?
Yes, and actually, yeah, and I think that it has to be there should be some kind of time constraint too.
I understand that. I understand.
Because it cannot
Yes.
continue and happen over and over and over again.
Yes, yes, that's correct. So you can work with the chair's office for those individuals who would qualify for this one-time opportunity to be able to rectify. And what they would do is, instead of Reze, for example, they would get the residential home owner's exemption.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I'm clear that the parcel would have to have been in, residential with the homeowner's exemption,
Yes.
and that has to be at risk, because we can't open it up to all parcels, because many people have many homes, right? More than one home. They live in one and they have investment properties in others, so it can't be offered for everything. It would just relate to the home that the homeowner lives in, and the homeowner had a homeowner's exemption.
Sure, you would be open to us moving it out, and when it comes back to committee, to work on CD1, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council Chair Waters.
Thank you. Just to be clear, when you say rectify the situation, and this is what's happened over and over, is the homeowner has to pay the residential A rate that year, and then they rectify it by then claiming the homeowner's exemption, and then it goes back to what they were paying previously. That's what you mean when you say rectify, right? Because you, at this point, do not have the ability to take into consideration the person's hardship and then give them a break, right? When you say rectify, you mean they got to pay the higher rate this year, and next year they can go back down.
The way everything's set up, that's how it would work. But we can have more discussion. That's the process in place. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the idea, and by the way, I've not only just you, because you and I have been working together for a little over 2 years,
Yeah,
but
over 2
prior
years.
to you, I was working on this. So I've actually been working on this for 4 years. And it's been really, really frustrating, because every year it happens. And again, I applaud you folks for putting in the actual bill, reminding people to claim the homeowner's exemption for both spouses or both more than one family member, because this happens a lot. And I got to believe that every year it goes down and more people actually figure this out. But do you agree with me, though, that if you look at the appeal process and the form that you're allowed to fill out, it doesn't account for this very situation where a spouse or a partner would pass away and they cannot find a remedy in the appeal process? That's why I'm coming up, being creative and giving you the discretion. So the appeal process doesn't work for these people, right?
Well, and there's 4 criteria, right? And Administrator Takara can word for word, recite what the four criteria are. But the 4 criteria are, to me, quite specific, except for the 4th one, which is more open about illegality. But yeah, it does. There's nothing that addresses an oversight.
Yeah, and it's not an illegal thing, but I'm very open to a friendly amendment. But I will tell you, members, I've been waiting 4 years for a friendly amendment. This is about my second or third bill that I've introduced trying to solve this problem.
I do want to make sure that we understand, though, I'm sorry, Chair Waters, that we also look at our internal costs to implement, the change, because it's gonna create a lot of extra work. And we're still in the process of hiring and getting fully staffed. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that operationally, we have to make sure we can execute it well.
I appreciate that. But again, the response that I've been getting from your department, this is my word, not yours, that it's poho, meaning tough luck. You made a mistake, you pay the higher rate this year, but you get the lower rate next year, right? It's poho. And I just don't, I'm not willing to accept that. Right? These are people who really need our help. And I'm trying to help them. And with or without your help, and at this point, I mean, like I said, I'm open to suggestions, completely open, by the way, to suggestions. But I figure as long as this bill's moving, maybe you folks will take this a little bit more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Vice Chair Keanu. Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. We don't have any registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please use the raise hand feature. Okay, moving forward to in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testimony for this bill, but is there anyone else who wishes to testify? No, okay. All right, thank you. Moving forward, we are now in discussion and question. Any further discussion and question? This is still first reading, okay? All right, the chair recommends that Bill 9, 2023 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, moving forward. Bill 61, 2022, addressing the classification of properties for property taxation purposes, particularly for properties used for residential purposes. Of course, we have our director with us, but I do want to provide the introducer of the bill, Councilmember Say, any time to discuss his bill.
Madam Chair, it was basically trying to address what is owner-occupant versus non-owner-occupant. And that was the whole intent, in making it much more easier for the application of real property tax. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, really well said. Thank you. Okay, and now we can bring up Director Kawano regarding this. And we know if we just look back, and maybe Mr. Takara can bring this up too, this is what we had before residential aid came about, yeah?
That's my understanding. We actually moved to this classification setup, I think, in the 2010 timeframe, and then it got reverted back to residential, and then residential A was added. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Do you have any comments about this bill?
I think it's something that we can work with, but there are a lot of technical things we have to address with regard to the bill. And I think, as I testified during a special budget committee meeting last week, we just have to really understand the data, as we move through it. There's Bill 4, I think, that's signed that created the TVU class, and I think that has to be worked into Bill 61 if we move it forward, because I don't see the TVU class in it. There's some other things that have to be worked on as well. So my comment is that the bill in the current form needs some work, and we need to really analyze the data.
Okay.
And run the analysis before we make any kind of conversion.
Okay. And I don't know if this question is if you will be able to answer this, but when the change did occur in the early 2010s regarding from owner and non-owner occupied to residential, then residential A, then all the different tiers, did that how did that change the operations? Did it change any software at BFS, and also how did it how did it change? Because I know the software is the same for Maui, right? That we're utilizing.
Yeah, so we're all on Tyler Technologies platform. Software didn't change. The classifications changed, and there were issues as to why the changes happened. And we have, Administrator Takara probably can share, why, after going to owner-occupied, non-owner-occupied, and then back to resident, why that happened, and give a quick briefing on why residential A happened. There are reasons between that, and that's why I've said over time, the current real property tax program that we have, you can't necessarily compare it to another county because it's built for, the metrics we have here on Oahu. And we're very different from the other counties, in terms of the makeup of, the types of homeowners we have, the types of property owners we have in general. And, over time, this program has evolved, right? And
Right.
There has been a lot of analysis, so.
And along with that, if you would like, okay, so we can call up Mr. Takara, I guess, to talk about the differences or the historical stuff. But because there's going to be different classifications anyway, from residential A, the different tiers of the residential A, owner versus non-owner occupied, and then the different tiers within all of those too. There's still going to be tiers for both owner and non-owner occupied, right? So, I mean, we're going to have to revamp, just as adding TVUs to our new classification is adding more, breadth to the Tyler system technology.
Well, I would think that if we move to, if we implement something along the lines of Bill 61, 2023, the residential classification with homeowners exemption would probably fall into, so the rough, approximately 150,000 parcels currently in residential with homeowners exemption would probably go right into, and it's reflected in the current draft of the bill, would go into residential would become residential, owner occupied, and the homeowner's exemption would, relate to that group. It's everything else that we would have to look at, and ensure that they all, it all goes into non-homeowner occupied, and to your point, the tiering is going to be important. The tiering that we have, and I believe Tyler Technologies allows us to go up to 3 tiers, but because we haven't used 3 tiers, there's going to have to be some development and testing before it's implemented.
Okay. Do we know how long it took from to add the tiers of residential A into the Tyler Technology software that BFS is using right now?
I will ask Administrator Takara to provide the history on Res A, how that got implemented.
Okay. Mr. Takara.
Hi. Maybe we can break it down by question, because there's a lot of questions. I'm not sure which one to answer first.
Sorry. First off, talking about, I began first with the bringing up the point that we had owner occupied and then non-owner occupied before residential and residential A came about, and then all the different tiers within each, yeah?
Yeah.
So can you talk, and then Director Kawano mentioned that there was a reason for that change to go back and forth, and then that it's tailored to our county. And so if you could explain that history.
Okay, so I believe in FY11, the homeowner, non-homeowner class was created, and it only lasted 1 year, because I think there was a pushback or resistance that the tax rates were different, and that added taxes were placed onto the tenant or the renter, which is, I guess, not the aim of the council and administration at that time. So it was reversed it back to residential. Then back in 2014, two, 3 years later, it was revised and looked at again, and the idea of having $1 million threshold came into play. And then the advent of residential A, that tenants, people renting or tenants of a property greater $1 million or greater would not be harmed or affected adversely as much as somebody renting a 300-400 or apartment unit. So if the taxes were passed, then it would be, I guess, more acceptable or readily absorbable or adopted by the tenant, more so than the lower priced properties. So that's why the $1 million threshold existed. I'll just add to it that, we testified back then, BFS, real property, that, yes, real property taxes is an expense, but we believe part of the equation, or larger part of the equation, is the market rental. That if real property taxes was strictly or solely passed to the tenant, that it may not be the case where the market actually, right? So in other words, if the taxes went up $1,200, if $100 more a month, yeah, that could be in certain situations, but not in all cases. But anyway, the advent of the $1 million threshold was because that all the properties would be affected, the lower price properties, and would be harmful to the tenants of the lower or middle income tenants. Sorry to be long-winded, I got kind of. And then I think, I'll just quickly kind of, so Res A was, I think, I want to say 2014 or 2015, and it was a flat rate. So you went from X and such a steep, and I think 1 or 2 years later, that's when the advent of the tiering came about. So it was a gradual, I guess, the first million is at $450 and everything else, but before it was just $6. So a $1 million property went from $3,500 to $6,000. So that was too much of a steep, and it was kind of tapering off. And software-wise, and that was a big undertaking because I think we're a pioneer. Honolulu back then was a pioneer, meaning that we're the first county of the 4 counties to implement tiering. So, and we kind of designed it in anticipation it could do a 3rd tier. So it's embedded in our system, and I think the other counties use that 3rd tier. But it's been 8-9 years, so we may have to kind of revive it. Hopefully, it's not as time-consuming as costly to revive it because there's other layers, on top of that. But it's a possibility.
Understood. Thank you very much. And is there an ability for tiers within the owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied classifications?
Yes. So, great question. So, as Director Kawano mentioned, that some technical language because Bill 4 became enacted. Now it's I think 23.7 that that needs to be applied here. But there's other questions and stuff. This bill doesn't consist of tiering. The non-homeowner or non-owner occupied class, the parcels that don't have a home exemption. And also, if the idea of tiering it, making it more progressive, so to speak, of course, the higher value properties would pay a higher rate, progressive type of approach. Along with that, as we mentioned, the history of the non-homeowner classification, the apartment buildings were being harmed, right? So you have these apartment buildings that have all these tenants in there. Their units are smaller, their rents are smaller, and if the taxes be passed on, that would be harmful, right? So if you carried out on that logic to Bill 61, I might have spoken about this concept in budget hearing or full council, where maybe one of the ideas is to reinvent or revitalize or recreate the apartment building classification, so that they would be kind of insulated from the tiering. right? But then one could also say that apartment buildings is actually a commercial in Denver, right? That it's an investment. If it's truly a residential purpose, then we have programs that could allow for low income and affordable type housing exemptions as well. So, we can discuss it at length or in detail later, individually or at meetings here publicly. But again, all these variables again can be complicated, and it can be sorted out. And again, this is one solution. Again, I think I spoke earlier about the bottom line is revenue, right? Meaning that if it's going to be revenue neutral, if this bill replaces or gets rid of Res A, right? So I think I explained. Sorry if I can use my hand without losing my folder in the ground. So Res A, you have this segment, right? Right now, upcoming FY24, there's about 29,000, close to 30,000 parcels that added revenue, which is about $143 million, right? But now if you have this non-owner occupied, you have 127,000. Right, to make up that 143, right? So again, tax rates can be lower and can diminish that SARF curve that, Chair Waters, right? But what about the apartment building? What about the multifamily or multi-unit properties, right? That's what I think council and I think this administration wants to protect as well. But I think there, as I dive into it, our team dives into it, I think solutions can come about. Not to say the other bills of Res A, like bills 24, 25, 27, 29, are not viable options. They are viable options, but we can further talk about, because the other bills I just spoke of talks about modifying Res A, yeah, I'll put down the mic now.
Yeah. We cannot talk about that. Never passed first reading yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for BFS? Okay, Council Chair Water.
Thank you, Administrator Takar. I think you're making a very good point that it is complicated. There's a lot of variables going on. When you switch one thing, like what this bill does, it's a big deal, right? And I'm not saying it's a good idea or not a good idea, because we all know that residential A was not popular when it passed, right? You're nodding, but you're agreeing with me, yeah?
Oh, no, nodding is agreeing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just verbally, it's
If
good
shaking
for
is
people who are
not
just
agreeing,
hearing
right?
us,
I just try to.
not seeing us.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody's washing their dishes and listening, but that's why a verbal response is super helpful. But the fact of the matter is, it's important to take all of these bills in context, right? Because one will affect the other, right? And while this is only past first reading, there's still time to work on it. But certainly, if we're going to do this, we should do it in a methodical way. And as Director Takara pointed out, that you want to have data, right, to see how much this is going to cost. I know during the budget briefings you said that Res A generates, and you said it today, about $140 million.
Yeah, if tax rates are the same going into FY24, our calculations, Res A brings in an additional $143 million. So without Res A, we would not have that revenue.
Right. So if we just go to homeowners, occupied and non-occupied, we'd really have to make up the difference with the non-occupied people, right? And you mentioned with or without tiers. It has to be a higher rate than homeowner occupied.
Well, I guess I'm assuming maybe I should not do that, but
you have to.
Well,
you have to make up the revenue, right?
I guess unbiasedly, to be revenue neutral, that's our approach or my approach to do the calculations and impact studies, right? So should it be the aim of revenue neutrality, then XXX gotta occur, right? But again, can I just backtrack? So Bill 61 can allow even the owner-occupied class to have a lower rate and not have or in addition to, other bills of Bill 40 of an added exemption. So you can also lower the rate of the owner occupied along with the home exemption. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things into play. At some point in the near future, I think decisions got to be made as far as pursuing Rese, modifying Rese, or pursuing a bill similar like Bill 61.
And we've dealt with this before over the years. I've had this discussion, and I've tried to modify residential A more than once, actually. But what I've learned over the years is that every time you make a decision on one portion of the tax code, it affects the other portions. So you have to take it all in together and in context and come up with a plan. So thank you. You agree with me, though? You're nodding again.
Yeah. Nodding is agreeing, right?
But
Shaking
again,
is not agreeing,
for the
right?
person at home who may just be, it's just good to have a verbal response. That's all. So
I'm sorry.
Is
Yeah,
that a
I
yes?
didn't interrupt you, but yeah. Okay, to interrupt you, yeah, yes, we're so far on the same page. How's
Okay.
that?
Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, Committee Vice Chair Wire and then Councilmember Say.
Thank you, Chair. And Mahalo, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding or apologies if it was said already because I was looking through the bill. So Rese right now is under 3 parcels on the property. Is that
Yes,
correct?
2 or less.
2 or less. And then if there's 3 or more, then it's residential?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning in that?
I kind of touched upon it.
Yeah.
Well, 2 or less was kind of considered more single family or non-multifamily. I mean, I know 2 is definition, but all practical purposes, once you creep into the 3 or more, now we're talking smaller units possibly and non-family type, where the two dwelling properties, you could have, multi-generational, extended family, blended family, that could maybe absorb the additional Rese taxes that I spoke of earlier. But once you creep into the 3, and it's again, markets changes since 2014 or 2015 when this was done, right? So I think Bill 29 talks about the 3rd unit, and I think that's what you're talking about. Is 3rd unit now acceptable as far as the threshold, right? So now we're talking about increasing that value threshold. So now should we even look at increasing the number of units or number of dwellings, which is a fair question. Yeah, but to answer your question, it was more like creeping into the multi or apartment type property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not safe to assume that more units would be more likely to be like investment type properties.
Correct, but that's when we're talking about the apartment, right? So apartment buildings, you have smaller units. If the real property taxes should be passed to them, then they will be more harmed, right? Versus one renting $1 million or higher end property. I know, $1 million, but if you can bear with me, just use it. If you allow me to use that term, right? So I think we all agree that $1 million is the median or recently been the median. So should that threshold increase? Right. I'm going to use one hand, so maybe I can say half the things. But right. So, but getting to your question, I think the threshold of the number of units was 3. But again, is it fair to look at that number as well? I think that's a fair question.
Okay.
But then now you're going to encapsulate others, right? Right, that's the downside.
Okay.
But it's a fair question, fair approach.
No, because when I think of it just community-wise, like, folks that have 3 units are going to be paying a lower rate than those with 2. Right.
So again, we can look at our data as far as how many 3 units. I think we did it back in, I think Ms. Chair Cordero introduced Bill 20. Was it last year or 21? I forget it.
Yeah.
21. And then that was adding 3 units, adding 5 tiers, 1, 3 threshold. So we kind of did some homework already. And I don't know if we shared some of the scenarios, but we can revisit that too.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'll leave it at that and appreciate the council members spurring on this conversation with the bill. Mahalo, Chair. Mahalo, CB.
Thank you. Councilmember Say.
Mr. Kawano, just a couple of questions. Presently, right now, with the real property tax, do you feel that it is fair and equitable for the general public at large, landowners? I'm trying to,
I'm sorry, can you, from
right.
do you feel, can you
yeah.
ask
Do
me
you
one more
feel
time?
that the real property tax ordinance is fair and equitable at this point in time?
I believe based on how the program is designed, it is fair and equitable.
Okay. So the bigger issue for us is the question, if we do address these type of issues, I would be very much concerned about the issue of budget neutrality. Like what Chair Waters stated, you affect this side, it may affect the other side. And that's where I get confused a lot of times because of the classifications, you see. This is just me, Madam Chair. If I was looking for revenues, the area that I would maybe consider looking at maybe next time around on developing the budget, who's making the most money in Hawaii? We just increase the hotel resort rates. Everybody's going after the Malihinis, right? So it's something for discussion because that money then would be transferred to our local residents. Is that correct, Mr. Kwano? If I was to say to you, okay, Mr. Kwano, let's get the mayor to agree that we're going to increase resort and hotel property rates. And that rate increase will generate revenues for the city and county of Honolulu. But you could also say that if you want to make it budget neutrality, that money could be then used for homeowners' property tax exemption, et cetera, tax credits, helping the local residents. So I'm just, saying this because it's like going after the, how would you say, not the commercial businesses that are making money no matter what. But I don't know what's going to happen the next 3 or 4 quarters because of the reports that we get on the economy. It's just that, yeah, I'm happy, Madam Chair, we are having this discussion, even though it's so complicated for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. Members, any other comments, questions? Okay, we will now proceed with, our registered remote testifier is here in person, so we'll get to her later, but, no, not for this one. Okay, sorry. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify remotely? Okay, we don't have any registered in-person testifiers for this item. Is there anyone else? Nope, okay. All right, members, we are now in discussion. Okay, Council Chair Waters.
Thank you, Chair Kodara. I am in support of this, but I do also recognize that it's not ready for prime time. But the fact of the matter is, it hasn't even gone through second reading, which gives us time and it would tee it up. But I'll make this recommendation now, and it goes for all the bills today, that we really should be looking at them all together rather than piecemealing this. All the bills on the agenda, actually, I've introduced various forms of the other bills as well. I like Bill 61 because rather than doing the vacancy tax, this takes care of that. But we're going to lose revenue without having the Res A. So you and I have introduced another bill that raises the threshold for Res A, right? So I support keeping this bill alive, but I do want to point out that we do have a permitted interaction group Reso here today, that we should take all of these bills together and talk about them together, because one will affect the other and or box us in. If we approve one and don't approve another, you kind of tie your hands if you want to try to deal with, the other classifications and other ideas. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, members, any other questions or discussions? Okay. The chair recommends that Bill 61, 2022 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, the next 2 items I would like to take up both at the same time for discussion. I know that we do have proposed CD1, so we'll do one at a time, but we can talk about them together. But then when we make the vote or the motion, I should say, it will be two separate. Yeah. So I do know. Okay. So first off, Bill 37, 2022 addresses the real property tax credit. Bill 38. Where is it? Addresses the real property tax credit. So first off, Bill 37. Members, we have a proposed posted CD1 OCS 2023-0286/3/29/2023 9:36 a.m. submitted by Councilmember Wire and a hand-carried CD1 OCS 2023-029/3/30/2023 at 1:24 p.m. submitted by Councilmember Kia Aina. I would like to defer to the council members for explanation. First off, with Committee Vice Chair Wire, then Council Vice Chair Kia Aina for both of their explanations on the proposed posted CD1 and hand-carried CD1. With that, I'll kick it over to my Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And is relating to the CD1 for Bill 37, the gist of it is increasing the tax credit from $60,000 to $90,000. And ultimately, I think big picture, I think the Bill 37, I appreciate, Councilmember Kiaina introducing it. And I just think that the framework overall is somewhat arbitrary in the sense that when we're talking about the needs of particular households, it's really hard to set an exact threshold, right? Because when you're looking from how HUD, for example, the federal government deals with low-income households, a lot of it's looking at an area median income, which is based on household size. And so that's going to change by household. And so in looking at a number that I thought was reasonable, that would meet the needs of, a household, understanding that the statute itself, for simplicity's sake, simply looks at the title holders, which makes sense, given those are the folks obligated to pay real property tax. I thought the $90,000 was reasonable, given that we have a whole different type of households in our community. Some single folks that own homes, some couples, some families, maybe a parent with their son and daughter both on the title. And so it was just maximizing the benefit to the community. But ultimately, I'd be deferring to Chair and welcome input from the entire committee on what we think is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kia Aina, Council Vice Chair Kia Aina.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, for moving a lot some of these measures forward, and of course to Councilmember Wire for engaging on Bill 37. I know we're all trying to do our best to provide relief for the neediest members of our community. After discussion with BFS Director Coano and his team, I'm recommending we move Bill 37 instead of Bill 38. In our discussion, I learned a little more about the uncertainty of the fiscal implications of this type of credit, because we will not know who is eligible until we get applications, and then there will be increases over the years as more people apply and qualify for the credit. So we won't know the real impacts of the credit for a few years. The uncertainty will be exacerbated by a change in the threshold amount each year. And just as background, so everybody understands, we're actually talking about a small group. On average, 4,000 apply, 3,500 are eligible, so 500 will be denied. So the overall cost, I think, is reasonable for us to move this bill forward. So again, as Councilmember Wire explained, current law is 60,000, which at the time that it was crafted was about 80 AMI. My original bill had it to 70. I'm increasing it to 80,000. So my CD1 is 80,000, and that is nearly 80% of the AMI. So I would like to have the BFS director come to explain perhaps what your thoughts are, but I will defer. I support either of the amendments, but I do recommend that we move this out of committee.
Okay, thank you. Can we go back to Councilmember Wire? I don't know if you mentioned because Councilmember Kia Aina mentioned 80,000. Would you be able to share your dollar amount?
So 90,000 was the one in the CD that was posted.
Okay, thank you. I also, since with the discussion that Councilmember Kia Aina brought up, I did mention that I was going to talk about 37 and 38 together. I would like to revert back and say that we will be discussing just Bill 37 moving forward. Okay. With us from the City Administration, we have Director Kawano. You have two proposed CD1s posted and hand carried. Would you be able to provide your input on both?
Okay, so let's talk about where we are now. And I want to confirm that Vice Chair Kia Aina shared factual data that I'm comfortable with. 3,800 to 4,000 applications a year on average. Currently, about 3,500 are eligible. So, the 300 to 500 either didn't make the income limit or something else. They didn't have their homeowner's exemption, something like that. So that's good. The cost trends at about $5.5 million at the $60,000 income limit. It's about $5.5 million. So our revenue reduction, if you will, by the credit is about $5.5 million. And as stated, as we raise the income level, we won't have good data on the increase in applications, increase in those eligible, and the tax effect for a few years, because people will find out that the income limit got increased, and over time they'll start to file. So my gut is that the total applications filed for the credit will increase. That will decrease revenue, and we lose, unless we do something else, we'll lose revenue neutrality, as we've been talking about. So obviously, I'm an accountant, I'm conservative. The first version of Bill 37 with the income limit was at 70, I think. Obviously, I would feel more comfortable with that based on now. But if we're looking at 80 and 90, I would caution that we go with the lower amount, even 75,000, but 80 would be preferable until we have an assessment of what the impact is to our revenue. And in prior testimony, I've talked about our costs that are going up, right, as a result of the big drivers are collective bargaining, pay, and fringe-related pay increases. We're going to be operating rail soon. That's been in a paper, and we're going to find out what the true cost of operating rail is, and that will have an impact. From FY24, we essentially take over ambulatory funding. The funding from the state will be very limited, going forward. So we're going to have to, address the operating costs of about $50 million for HESD. We also are going to continue to expand water safety through ocean safety, and that will also have an impact on the amount we spend. So I like the thought of using the PIG to look at everything on an overall basis, because at the same time, as we work on legislation with regard to real property tax, we have to keep in mind that we have to maintain a balanced budget going forward. So I'll just leave it at that and answer questions. Thank you, Budget Chair.
Okay, so going back to the main point between the CD1, Because you threw a lot in the air there. You said ambulatory, ocean safety.
That was on the expenditure side, yeah.
Expenditure, okay.
Yeah.
I get that. Okay, so but back to the original, I guess, prompt, which is between the two CD1s, your discussion, lower is preferable to work off of. Is that correct?
Lower based on what you all feel is reasonable, with the understanding that council always has opportunity to, introduce bills to adjust going forward in the future, would be the way to go, because you don't want to start at a high level. We have growing pains, right? We have issues and have to bring it down, or even worse, increase tax rates to balance the budget in the future.
Okay, I understand now. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was very much into what you were saying, but then I totally forgot that my prompt was that question. Okay, any questions? Sure. Okay, Council Vice Chair Wire, Kia Aina, and the Committee Vice Chair Wire. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So just as a reminder, I would have preferred a Bill 38 so that we wouldn't have to be coming back in future councils, so that it would be fixed at a 80% AMI for a two-person household. What I'm willing to compromise on is that we move Bill 37, because 80,000 is not even at 80%. It's between 75% and 80,000. 75% of the median is $78,375, and 80% of the median is $83,600, which Bill 38. I feel that the CD1 that I am proposing is reasonable. With regard to reduction, we have seen a significant increase in revenues from the increase of real property tax, and I feel that everyone will agree that those who are the neediest in our community deserve to have this bill move forward, because the 60,000 was based at the time on the 80% median. So I'm simply trying to increase it to where we are in 2023. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to be able to weather this. If it's $5.5 million now, then you just adjust for that. But I mean, you said the other day, residential A, $140 million just on residential A. So we're getting an increase in taxes. So I recommend that we move this bill out of committee and for final reading before full council.
Okay, Committee Vice Chair Wire.
Yeah, thank you. Mahalo, Chair. So, Director, it sounds like there's a lot of outstanding analysis needed. At what point do you think BFS would be ready to have a conversation about specific impacts on budget based on, particular tax frameworks? And that would be ongoing, of course, because it's going to depend on what comes out of council.
So, by the way, I want to share that Vice Chair Kia Aina's comments were, to me, very reasonable and made sense, makes good sense. We can obviously do that and look at, tax impacts, but 37, 38, and let's talk about 37 because we're focusing there, and I would prefer to be at 37 because it's set.
I guess the question is more holistic, right? Because we have multiple bills, and of course we'd want them all to work together.
The issue though with 37 specifically, we're not going to know again for a few years because of the way the credit is calculated. It's based on taxpayers turning in their application with their tax return transcripts, or if they can't get that, that's preferred, the first 2 pages of the tax return, along with other information requested. So until all of that is turned in and analyzed, we won't be able to provide an impact with any kind of accuracy. It'll probably start at 5.5, where we are now, 5.5 million, in terms of the tax revenue impact. How much it increases, we're not going to know for a few years.
So I guess I'm wondering, because I think I heard earlier you mentioned we should table some of these conversations. So I'm just wondering how long you would be wanting them to be tabled then.
I don't have any input on that right now.
Okay.
I do know because, the mayor and the team, we're doing our town halls, and there is concern about, the increases in real property tax assessments. And we've talked about, protecting home ownership through the low-income tax credit. I think more of that than any other program that we have on the table today. More of it is that. And that's that in terms of our real property tax program. I've been told by our staff that it is the linchpin, right? It's the circuit breaker. That's the main one in place to protect home ownership.
Yeah. And so I guess for me, it's in terms of we're figuring out how to best meet the needs of our families, right? And so if we're looking at, are we increasing the low-income tax credit? Are we increasing the homeowner tax exemption? I think that's a conversation in addition to a discussion about the larger framework that the permitted interaction group can have if it goes through. And I think BFS would be a part of that, I'm assuming, a part of that conversation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm sure we will provide data to your process.
Yeah, because I feel like when we had this conversation during budget briefing or maybe last budget committee, it seemed like the inclination was, okay, we don't want to necessarily overshoot the homeowner exemption, and the low income tax credit is the means to provide relief to low income families, right? Was that kind of, I don't want to misrepresent what was said before.
Well, I think we met, right? And the conclusion was we need to, go in with our eyes open and be deliberate, measured, and understand that there's going to be a tax impact. I want to echo what Councilmember Say has said in the past. At the same time, and the Oahu Real Property Tax Commission mentioned this, we should look at exemptions that perhaps should be repealed as well to help offset so that, we can shift some of the relief benefit to homeowners at this time. So that should be considered as well.
Okay, because I think there's a lot of underlying considerations, right? Because I think 70, you said, was probably the most reasonable, maybe in part just because it's the lowest.
I feel good about that, but like I said earlier, Vice Chair Kia'aina's rationale, her explanation made sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, 80, we have 90, so 80% AMI for one-person household is 73,000 plus little, 83,000 plus little for a two-person household, 94,000 plus little for a three-person household. So I think when we're having this conversation, at least on my part, I can't speak for everyone, it's figuring out of all these bills we have, what's the best way to provide relief in addition to looking at how we maintain that revenue and also shift the direction of our market from out-of-state investment, right, to provide more opportunities for local families. So I would similarly, I think, support deferring the measures to have the conversation in the permitted interaction group. Mahalo, Director. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any Council Chair Waters?
Thank you. Thank you, Director. So currently, there's about 3,500 eligible homeowners who are currently taking advantage of this program. And that costs about $5.5 million
approximately,
annually.
Yes.
Okay, so if we're increasing it, and by the way, I do support this bill, even at the higher rate of 90, but I understand what you're saying. It's better to be cautious. But we're increasing it by 20,000, so it's up to 80,000. And this, again, would be for the combined income of title holders. So the entire household cannot exceed the 80,000.
If I recall right, the income that's tracked, not the entire household, it includes the named title holders of the home.
Yeah, title holders.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
if I misspoke, I apologize. So when we increase it to 80,000, you anticipate, your best guess is about another 5.5 million it'll end up costing.
No, I can't say that. The number is going to start at 5.5 because if you look at layers, right, we're going to have the same. Generally, there's a group of taxpayers that are going to file, and that current tranche that goes up to 60,000, in terms of income limit, they're probably going to file again because you have to file every year.
Of course.
And this credit doesn't carry over, so you lose it or you.
Because your income could
right.
change the very next year.
So by going up to 70,000 or 80,000 or 90,000, you add more layers of taxpayers that can qualify.
Right.
Yeah, the issue is it takes time for people to realize that, hey, I make the cutoff, so I should apply. And it'll take, I would think, at least a few years for the new group of taxpayers, which will be larger, that become eligible to qualify and get the benefit. So I would think the number goes up, but I can't say it's going to double. I don't know.
Okay, I just want to clarify that because it wasn't clear.
Yeah.
But obviously, just using reason and common sense, that if more people apply and the threshold is now 20,000 more, it will go up.
It will go up. Yep.
Yeah.
The impact to our revenue base will
Not just so
be more adverse.
people are clear, this wouldn't, if it passes third reading next month, it's not going to go into effect until, is it
July 1, 2024.
July 1, 2024, right? That's a verbal yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if people are applying for this, we pass it out next month. People would be applying for this when it's starting September, right? Presumably this coming September 2023 for it to take effect July 2024, right?
Right.
Okay. So wouldn't we know by then, seeing all the folks who are applying in September, go through all the applications and know how much this is going to cost?
Oh, we'll have the first check, in terms of how much more, how many more
people
applicants, how many more eligible. But as I mentioned, it's going to take time for people to realize that, it's 80,000 now.
Right.
I better apply. So there's obviously going to require some outreach and education like we've been doing on the assessment side.
Yeah.
But it'll take a few years to stabilize.
Sure.
Wherever it is.
That makes sense. And, I'm just guessing here that I'm sure a lot of people aren't even aware of Section 8-13.2 of the revised ordinances, that they're not even aware that if you make $60,000 or less, that you're entitled to this, because 3,500 folks who currently receive it seems a bit low based on the numbers that have been talked about today. But that's not my question. My question to you is, whatever tax that relief that we provide, you got to balance the budget, right? So in my earlier discussions with you during the budget process, we talked about the administration's overall budget, and I asked you how much money under the current administration's submission of the budget, how much money is left over for long-term tax relief other than the $45 million that the administration is proposing. And your answer was there wasn't anything left. So, given those facts, we should try to find some sort of savings in order to pay for this, right? In order to balance the budget. I mean, just using common sense. We got to find the money somewhere to pay for this, right?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, thank you. More a comment than a question at this point, though. I like the bill. Don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is, and former budget chair Say has been saying this, you got to find savings someplace. So keep that in mind going forward. And that's why I'm saying, let the Permitted Action Group do its job, figure this out holistically. But I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it for this committee to decide.
Members, we're still in discussion. We do have the two proposed CD1s up for discussion as well, if anyone has any comments about that. Councilmember Say?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yeah. At this point in time, I'd like to take a very go slow approach. That's number one. Number two, we should basically try to look at our budget as far as what the restoration of the county's budget will be in regards to county services. That's two. Number three, I hope this committee will try to address the present real property tax exemptions we have on the books also. If you want to do something like this Bill 37, the 5.5 will be a major impact right now, but on top of that will be the increase in the number of private property owners who will be applying for the increase. That's another issue that I have. But more importantly, there are so many moving targets that the individuals that are going to be part of the resolution 23-40 can really look into what you folks really want to do. What is the priority? Like I said to you folks, the priority for me was to restore as much as we could for county services. Because for the past 2 years, both you and I went through the process of trying to find positions, giving the departments the opportunity to hire. And with the testimony last week, I was kind of shocked. Said that the approach that we took. But look at the macro of what we are deliberating with. So are we going to be addressing, Madam Chair and council members on the Budget Committee, the issue of homeowners' property tax exemption? If not, well, I got to find out what is it. Homeowners' real property tax exemption versus credits. You can't have it both. And that's what I'm trying to share with the members of the council. But I'm really happy and elated that we are having this type of discussion, because I wish I had the opportunity, Madam Chair, when we were working, because all it was the first 2 years was catch up with COVID. Yeah. So I just would like to support the resolution 23-40, that all of those individuals who are part of this, I know we're not addressing it, but that's what I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Okay. Moving forward, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. We don't have any registered remote testifiers, so we will move to in-person testimony with Ted Kafalas.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Council members, Ted Kafalas with Grassroots Institute. We appreciate both the proposed amendments to this bill, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about revenue neutrality here. We just want to point out that given the astronomical assessments that have recently come back, there's more than enough money to play with in terms of giving relief to local residents. We still do have concerns that Bill 37 wouldn't automatically adjust this relief, and it's something that we'd have to come back to in future years. But we may want to consider splitting the difference between Council Member Wire and Vice Chair Kia Aina's proposals at $85,000. That gets us closer to that 80% AMI number that we've been discussing so frequently here. We do understand that there are some issues with the timing and calculations with AMI in terms of Bill 38, but I did want to at least mention that Kauai currently uses AMI when calculating the real property tax credit. So this isn't unheard of. It's not something that we have to reinvent the wheel on. So if needed, we can reach out to Kauai and touch base with them. So, we just wanted to mention that this is really vital that we pass something through today and give people the relief that they need. And so we appreciate you all considering this bill and available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, we have Committee Vice Chair Wire.
Briefly, Chair, mahalo, and thank you for being here. Do you know if the AMI that Kauai uses is based on like the number of title holders? So it's like if it's 3, it's 3-person AMI? Or
I'm not positive on that, but I can check and get back to you.
Okay, we can look too. Just curious.
Sure.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Members, okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Okay, members, we are in discussion. Director Kawano. Director Kawano, is it easier to move up? You stated earlier, or I think maybe Mr. Takara stated earlier, that it's easier to move up versus going back down, like decreasing, right? Can you explain like what happens if we go both ways?
So if you take a more measured approach and systematically, make the adjustment, it may not be at the highest we're talking about today, but it'll be somewhere. Do the measurement, understand how the program got impacted, not only in terms of, the impact to the revenue, the real property tax revenue, but also the amount of taxpayers that applied, the ones that got eligible, and any other issues that come up during implementation.
Okay.
If you operate that way, and we work together, and we keep focusing on balancing the budget, I don't see why there would be an issue to, from time to time, reassess the income limit for the credit. We're sort of doing it now.
Yeah.
Versus putting it on AMI, or starting at a really high number. If there are issues that come up, from a fiscal standpoint, I think bringing it down would not result in happy taxpayers.
Okay.
That's, to me, it's that you're going to have a lot of unhappy taxpayers, along with, fiscal issues if we move too fast.
Okay.
So
Understood.
I would say be measured, and look at the data, and then progress up.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Members, any other discussion? Okay, members, with the two proposed CD1, the chair will recommend that Bill 37, 2022 be amended to the CD1 submitted by Councilmember Kia Aina. Okay, members, any discussions? Councilmember Say.
Will that lock me in on third reading? If I adopt this CD1 now, I don't want to be put in a position whereby I have to vote up on it after coming out of this committee. My point is that these measures should be deferred until the interactive group gets involved in making that determination. So if you are telling me that this will be the vehicle that the council will use, I can sympathize and support it, but you're not giving the council members the opportunity of the homeowners property tax exemption measures in the past too. So which of the projects or which of the legislation would you folks want? Exemptions, like I said earlier, or credits? Now, we're talking about credits today. Am I locking myself in if I vote on this particular measure as a CD1?
Okay, thank you for your question. I don't want to go, well, because it is in 23-40, if we do pass this out, so I was just amending, first off. My motion was to amend, not to pass out or defer or anything, but that's a good question. I will answer it. When we approve the PIG, and then when we approve the PIG in the council, all real property taxes, except those that are not codified in the revised ordinances of Honolulu, will then not be able to be taken action upon. So when you say locked in, we will not be locked in until the PIG finalizes their report. So we can't, if we pass this out, or if we keep it in committee, it'll stay in committee until the PIG report is out. If we pass this out, this will also stay in council until the PIG passes the report. But once again, I don't want to talk about the PIG. We're not on that resolution. I don't want to get any dings on my name for running this committee. Okay.
No, Madam Chair, thank you very much for the clarification. All I'm saying, what about the homeowners exemptions that other members had?
So we, okay, once again, we're not at that resolution yet, but I will answer that there's 26 bills in play, including talking about exemptions. So let me get there. I want to amend this first. We can, okay, let's go. Okay, discussion, Councilmember Wire.
Just in support of the amendment, and I wanted to say again, mahalo to Councilmember Kia Aina for leading the charge on this particular bill, and then also the amendment, so mahalo.
Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, no, I'm on the wrong bill. Sorry, I'm on Bill 38, excuse me. Bill 37. Okay. The chair recommends, okay, we're on discussion. Any objections to amend the bill? Once again, this is the one to 80,000. Any objections? Any reservations? The bill has been amended to a CD1. Okay, you all heard my response to Councilmember Say. With that, the chair then recommends that Bill 37, 2022 CD1. Do I have to read the OCS one that's under Councilmember Kiaina's one? Do I have to read it? Do I have to read the OCS number? No? Okay, never mind. Be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion? Okay, all right. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, next up, Bill 38, 2022. We all heard the request for Bill 38 to be deferred, but with that, we do also have two proposed CD1s from Councilmember Kia Aina at OCS 2023-0219-3/22/2023 at 1:24 p.m. and Councilmember Wire at OCS 2023-0338/3/24/2023 at 12:03 p.m. For your information, the amendments are listed on the agenda. Okay, I would like to defer to both the Vice Chair of the Council Vice Chair Kia Aina and Committee Vice Chair Wire for your explanations on the CD1s. Okay, Committee Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Again, largely for discussion purposes, amending the 80% AMI to 100% AMI is the criteria for the, essentially the tax credit amount is set each year, largely because the amount is not based on actual household size. It's dictated by the title holders on the home. And so when we're setting the AMI, we're just kind of picking out the two-person household as the criteria. But I understand the complexity of the entire framework and the reasoning. Mahalo.
Understood. Thank you very much. Okay, Council Vice Chair Kia Aina.
Thank you. With regard to my CD1, I, of course, kept the 80 AMI for a two-person household. The only two things I did to modify it was that I was trying to provide greater certainty with regard to a time frame for which the BFS director would have utilized, depending on when the, so that he would have clear guidance on which AMI to use, correct? So I had specified a certain date. So that was December 31st of the preceding calendar year. Second thing, I made it effective next year. Again, to follow up on my earlier comments on Bill 37, after further consultation with the BFS director, I have determined that a wiser course of action is to have a specific amount. And although it will take a little while for BFS director to acclimate to the core number of people beyond the 3,500 that are currently served, that's our jobs. That's all of our jobs. We adjust for the cost of living, and we increase that. So just because we're not going to know doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And again, we're talking about just increasing the base from from 5.5 million currently to accommodate for this. So again, I ask that this, I pull back my CD1 and ask that Bill 38 be deferred.
Okay. There would still be two motions, members. This is to amend to a CD1 with the withdrawal of the CD1 by Councilmember Kia Aina. Council Vice Chair Kia Aina. We have Committee Vice Chair Wires CD1 for recommendation.
I would also ask to withdraw mine as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, all right, got it. With that, we have Director Kawano. Do you have anything to add to this, or?
Budget Chair, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Here for questions.
Thank you. Questions for the Director? Okay, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. We don't have any remote registered testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify remotely? Okay, members, we have in-person testimony, Mr. Ted Kafalis.
Aloha, Chair, council members. We'll stand on our written testimony and just reiterate how important it is that we pass some sort of relief today so that we can educate homeowners and implement it internally. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions for the testifier? Okay. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in person? Seeing none, we are in discussion. Okay. With both CDs, proposed CD1s withdrawn, the chair recommends that action on Bill 38, 2022 be postponed to a date and time to be determined by the chair. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Next, we have Bill 40, which addresses the real property tax exemption. Members, we have two proposed CD1s, posted CD1s from Council Vice Chair Kia Aina at OCS 2023 0201/3/16/23 at 2:44 p.m. and also Committee Vice Chair Wire at OCS 2023-02557/3/28/2023 at 10:09 a.m. I would like to defer the for explanation of their CD1s to both council members. Okay, Committee Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. So the current homeowner occupant exemption is $100,000 with Bill 40 increasing it to $110,000. My CD would increase that to $120,000. And then under the current law, 65 years and older has an exemption of $140,000. Current version of Bill 40 increases that $10,000 to $150,000. And my amendment CD1 increases that amount to $180,000. So that would be a $120,000 homeowner occupant exemption and a $180,000 kupuna exemption for those 65 and older. And it also maintains the exemption that was previously existing in the ordinance.
Council Vice Chair Kia Aina.
Thank you. My proposed CD1 increases the homeowner's real property tax exemption from $110,000 to $120,000. Second, it increases the homeowner's real property tax exemption for persons 65 years and older from $150,000 to $160,000. And lastly, it provides that for homeowners' real property tax exemption for taxpayers 75 years or older, after maximum period of 5 years for exemption expires, the property tax exemption will revert to $160,000 instead of $140,000.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions on the proposed posted CD1s? Okay, with us from the administration, we have Director Kawano.
Hi, Budget Chair. Andy Kawano, Director of Budget Fiscal Services. I'm here for questioning, but my personal preference, I would prefer to have even increases across all age groups. I think it's more equitable. I think more uniformity. I can see council members, and not just in this bill, but in other bill proposals as well, trying to give more to 65 and older. I don't see how that, addresses equity, because you have, rightfully so, a lot of retirees, or even still a lot of people working 65 and over that are well off. They're average to above average to wealthy, and to shift the relief there may not really achieve the overall goal of giving those most in need relief. So my preference would be, if we do any increases, that it's across the board, same. That's all I want to say, and then I'll take questions.
Okay, thank you. Committee Vice Chair Wire.
And then
Thank you, Chair. And mahalo, Director, for being here again. I just wanted to double check, because I know we talked about it before. So the last time that the exemption was raised for either level was several years ago, is that correct? Was it?
Yes.
Do you remember exactly when?
I don't.
Okay.
2019.
Okay. Yeah,
Administrator Takara covered that.
And then is it fair to say the property values have gone up every year since then?
Not every year.
Not every
Property
year.
values flattened from 2021 through fiscal 2021 through fiscal 2020 through fiscal 2022. There were pretty flat valuations on average.
Oh, good to know. So it didn't go down, but it stayed the same.
Yeah, if you look at a 30-year history of our real property tax growth, assessment growth, it typically steps up, and then you have some kind of economic turmoil. There's a flattening, and then it goes up again. What is concerning the public currently is that we've had 2 consecutive years of larger increases, and larger historically as well. So that's the concerning part. Yeah, I'm not, and I want to make clear, I'm not opposing an increase. I think it just has to be a part of a plan, and I would prefer if it's equitable to all taxpayers.
I appreciate the equity concern. Do you think that it should be proportional to increases in property values?
No.
No. Tell me more.
I think because we have a situation where we have significant increases in costs going back to balancing the budget, if we make our exemptions proportional to increases in assessments, we are going to have a hard time covering our expenses, because you have a 6% increase in, let's say, assessments. Let's say it's 5%. You have a 5% increase in expenditures, all of our operating costs. If we keep increasing the exemption with the increases in assessment, we're going to have to find those dollars elsewhere to balance the budget, or we have to reduce core services. So I think from a fiscal standpoint, considering where we are now with high inflation, I think exemptions can be looked at, but it's better to be measured and then come back to the table periodically to make that adjustment. I think variable increases on a direct basis to some index is not good right now.
Perfect.
Just based on where we are currently.
Okay. And if we were proportional, then it seems like the amount would actually be higher than either of the CDs. Is that your take or your reading?
I haven't run the numbers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you think it should be static? So if it's not proportional, should that number be static regardless of what the market is?
I think over time it should move on a step basis, but it shouldn't have to move every year.
Okay. But we don't have a set plan number, or every so often it should be adjusted, anything like that?
I don't have such a plan right now.
Okay. Whose role do you think it is to make those assessments and judgments? oh, maybe it's time now to increase the exemption amount?
I think it's a joint responsibility because we're sensitive to the general public. Council members are sensitive to each of your districts. So I think it's a joint responsibility because we hear the public as well.
Okay. So is it fair to say BFS has talked with the administration about, is it time now to increase the exemption amount?
That's fair, yes.
Okay.
We've been talking about the exemption increase internally. The issue is what's the right amount?
Okay, what is the right amount?
What we can afford. So I've shared before, every $10,000 in exemption increase is about 5.2 to, let's say $5 million rounded. So every time we move it up by $10,000, $5 million more of real property tax is reduced. We get $5 million less of real property taxes collected. Mm-hmm. That would mean we have to find other sources to fund, our operations.
Yeah. And I think that's a part of the conversation too, right? Is we're looking at homeowner occupant versus non-homeowner occupant rates and that framework. I mean, do you see potential there to increase revenue for the city by distinguishing?
Geez, just a little while ago, we we're talking about keeping it neutral.
Let me take that back in terms of filling the gap, I should say. So increasing versus what we're losing.
I think it will be challenging if we move to homeowner occupied, non-owner occupied, homeowner occupied, non-owner occupied. I think initially we're going to have growing pains to get we're talking about rates and tiering. If the goal is revenue neutrality, when we do that, it's going to be challenging the first year or so to make those changes, communicate to the public so they understand, because we're going to impact people differently in many cases, and people are going to have to understand why.
Yeah, because I do think I appreciate that.
Hold on, Committee Vice Chair Wire, I just want to err on the side of caution of, I know we already voted on 61. If we can just stay to the discussion of the bill in front of us instead of the homeowner, non-owner occupied.
I appreciate that. I do think that, if we're talking about where money is going to be coming from, right? Because I know some of the members are particularly concerned in losing revenue by giving exemptions. I thought it was important to note that maybe there's an underlying flaw in our overall tax system that this council actually could resolve. And I think we're trying to, right? And so it's just as much on us as it is on the administration to determine where we can find money, and we want to just make sure that it's not on the backs of our local families. But appreciate that. Emma Hall, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member.
Okay, thank you. Council Vice Chair Kiaina.
Thank you. With regard to money, we're getting increased revenue from increased property tax assessment, so that's where we're going to get the money. So Bill 40, as introduced, costs $5 million. My CD1 costs another $5 million, so that's $10 million, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
approximately,
roughly.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. I think that we can handle that. With regard to all of the other avenues that we're going to be discussing in the PIG, and there are a lot, I look forward to that dialogue because for me, that is extra revenue, but I don't want us to think that we are starting from a baseline of no money. Our coffers have increased already because of the real property tax assessment. So, that's where I'm coming from. So I guess I just want to let my colleagues know that basically my CD1 is going to be costing us $10 million. And that while I know that we're going to have the PIG, and I look forward to having all the dialogue, I think a combination of the tax credit as well as this sends a message to the homeowners of Oahu that we hear them and we want to provide relief now by passing this measure today. And if there are, as we look comprehensively at all of the measures, which I would welcome, that's a bonus to this dialogue. Our actions today is not taking away from that. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that, and I hope that we're able to move this out of committee.
Okay, members, we still have two CD1s in front of us. Any discussion on that, Director Kawano, on either?
I'm mainly here to answer questions.
Okay.
But I do, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, property taxes have gone up annually for the last 2 years. We're not sure where it's going to end up this year. We know that the median home price is pulling back, right, from Board of Realtor reports. There's inflation. The government has to address cost increases like anyone else living on the island or operating a business on the island. And then we have all of those larger expenses that I mentioned earlier, and I'm not going to repeat them because they're all recorded. So we want to proceed with caution, but as well be reasonable. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any discussions on the two proposed CD1s? Okay, or, you know, with the PIG, if we do move this bill forward, we could always come back with further CD1s when the bill is recommitted back to committee too. So we do have time, even if this is passed out, if this is amended, it is not the last crack at it in committee. Okay, all right. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. We have no registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Okay, we have in-person testimony from Ted Kafalis.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Council members, Ted Kafalis with Grassroots Institute. We really appreciate you guys hearing this bill today, and thank you for the proposed increases to this bill. But we do think you can take it a step further, actually. Maui recently increased its home exemption by $100,000. So they're up to now $300K. And even with, the increase that we're looking at here in Honolulu, Kauai's home exemption is up to $160,000. So right now, Honolulu is really the third out of 4 counties, and Big Island doesn't even compare to the home prices that we're dealing with here. I know, Councilmember Wire, you mentioned earlier about the last time that we raised this home exemption. The prices back then, the median home price was $767,000. Today, we're at about $970,000. So that's a $200,000 increase. And homeowners are feeling it in those past 4 years. So we need to find some way to provide a little bit extra relief for local families that live in their homes. So we truly hope you guys will consider increasing these amounts, especially for our kupuna that live on fixed incomes. And we really appreciate your time this morning in hearing these bills.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kafalis? Okay, all right. Members, not members, is there anyone else who wishes to testify in person? Okay, members, we are now in discussion. Members, discussion? Any preference for a CD1? Okay, you guys just let me decide. Okay, we're gonna go big or go home then. Okay, oh, sorry. Councilor Vice Chair Kia'aina.
So with regard to budget, Director Kawano, so what are the financial costs for each CD1? Or financial implications for each? I see that with regard to the, for all homeowners, we both have it increased to 120,000, so that's set. And of course, there's the subset of those 65 years and older. So, and the difference between the two CD1s is 160,000 versus 180,000.
Okay, so just based on the $20,000 increment that's, as I stated earlier, right, for all homeowners with the Hawks homeowner exemption, every $10,000 increase is $5 million rounded. So if we bump up the exemption $20,000 across the board, we're talking $10 million, in terms of reduction of revenue. If we add another 20 on top of that for people above 65, the folks 65 and older that have homeowners exemption amount for budget purposes about half of the whole group. So about half of all of the homeowners, again, 65 and over, the homeowners 65 and over make up half of the group, half of the 151,000 homeowners with Hawks. So if you bump up an additional $20,000 to those 65 and over, you add $5 million.
Okay, so with regard to the two versions, so we got that for 120,000, that'll come up to 10 million. Bump it up for all homeowners 65 or older. The cost from 140 to 160, is that 10 million? And then from 140 to 180, that would be 20 million? Is that the different financial costs for 65 and older?
The 151,000 includes 65 and older. So if you bump everybody up across the board 20,000, that's $10 million.
Yes,
So-
I'm understanding. I'm trying to have you help clarify the
So we
cost
go.
for CD1 for the 65
one of
and
the
older.
first CD1 is 20,000 across the board. So 100,000 to 120, 140 to 160, right? So 20,000 across the board, that's $10 million in reduced revenue.
Yeah.
The second CD1 bumps up 65 and older, 20,000 more to 180. Because 65 and older make up half of the class, half of the group, that's another $5 million increase.
So
So for every
$15 million.
Yes.
10,000, it's about $2.5 million because half of the class. So if you
Got
bump up another 20,000, it's
Okay.
5. So one is 10 million, the other one is 15 million.
Thank you.
Okay.
Members, maybe we can use a 45 million one-time tax credit for this. No. It was just,
Well-
sorry, I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Correct. We're doing the tax credit because we want immediate relief. That's going to go in effect. If you approve it, if adopted by council, it'll go in effect July 1st, this coming July 1st. What we're talking about goes in effect the following year. The taxpayers don't benefit till FY25.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Sorry, that was, I know, I'm trying to be strict and then I let it slip. Okay, so Director, let's say we pass this bill, no more CD1, and when it comes back to committee after our PIG, and we have further discussions on both equity and the best, and discussions on fiscal implications during the PIG, would you support that?
I'll do whatever is necessary to help, address the issues we have on the table. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I know I'm throwing another option here, everyone. We have two CD1s. Another one is to continue moving Bill 40 so that we can, and then when it comes back to committee after the PIG, come up with another CD1. Any discussion?
Thank you, Chair. I think the complexity is for the 65 years and older. That's where the two CD1s differ. How about we move the CD1 forward, only increasing it to 120. That will be the same between both. So I'll be honest with you, I'd rather be on record as moving forward to, I feel, what is a rational increase. So the total cost would be $10 million. And then we wait for the PIG to recommit it back, and we can deal with the 65-year and older, because that's where we have a disagreement on the cost of that. And the director also had mentioned that they make up a significant portion of the all homeowners. So I guess that would be my recommendation. Director, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I just want to, I want to reiterate, maybe I wasn't clear. The 65 and older is included in the entire homeowner
Yeah.
class with the exemption. And
Yes.
it represents roughly half of the total.
Yes. And so if we move either the 65 and older to 160 or 180, that is going to decrease the revenue because they're not going to be wedded to 120. They're going to have a higher tax deduction, correct? And so what I'm recommending is that.
It's not a deduction, it's a reduction of the assessment amount?
Yeah. So how about a CD1 that just increases for all homeowners to 120? I'd rather have that going out of committee, Chair, than the 110.
We have to clarify because currently the 65 and over are at 140. So it would have.
I'm sorry, yeah.
It would have to be 120 and 160. Because then we're bumping both subgroups up by 20,000, right?
Okay, so I'll make a second motion. So for a new CD1 to amend the 110,000 to 120,000 from the original bill.
Okay. And then we don't tackle the 65-year and
Yes.
older, which is, right?
We can discuss that in the PIG and then
Yes.
further. Okay.
The current bill is at 150, right?
Yes,
The current CD1.
we'll leave it at
we're
that.
talking-
Yes,
So there's going to be an increase from 140 to 150, right?
correct.
Based on the discussion we have, okay.
But also, we will be recommitting these bills after the PIG. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. All right.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, with that, the chair recommends that Bill 40, 2022 be amended to a CD1, changing $110,000 to $120,000. That is from the base Bill 40. Any discussion? Councilmember Wire.
Just clarification. So this is a committee draft changing the 110 to 120, and then 150 remains the Kupuna
Correct.
exemption. Okay, mahalo.
Correct. Thank you very much. Okay. Any objections? Any reservations? The bill has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends Bill 40, 2022 CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion? Any objections? Reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, next item, Bill 31, addressing the real property tax credit for certain homeowners. It was introduced by Council Chair Waters. It's not here, but Director Kawano. This is from 2022.
Budget Chair Cordero, this is Bill 31, right, we're on. So this is the one, it's related to the low-income credit. It's based on AMI, and it's also based on household size or occupants. BFS would strongly oppose the bill because of the complexity that it would cause in the calculation of the credit and administration and enforcement. Because if you read through the bill, it's very vague on how you validate occupancy in a home.
Okay. How is this different from 38, Bill 38?
38 uses AMI, but for a two-person occupied home.
Okay.
So it's the number of occupants are fixed.
Oh, I understand. So this one does not have a fixed, okay, got
It
it.
can be anything, yeah. It can be anything in the declaration provided by the taxpayer currently. Because it doesn't tie it to title as well. It just says occupants in the home. It can be anything.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion? Councilmember Wire.
Just briefly, Chair, I just wanted to note that I think this gets to a lot of the concerns I was raising earlier, in the sense that if we're going to be looking at how to serve low-income families, it makes sense to look at a program that is actually looking at their household income and what that means for their low-income status, right? And so I would support the intent of Bill 31, understanding that the CDs I introduced earlier were largely a reflection on BFS's concerns and director's concerns. So I would support, I think this is first reading in committee, so I would support moving it forward. Mahalo.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. We don't have any registered testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify online? Okay. Members, we are now with in-person testifiers. There's no registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in person? Seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Okay, seeing none, the chair recommends that Bill 31, 2022 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Next, we have Resolution 23-40, which establishes a real property taxation permitted interaction group composed of council members Radiant, Cordero, Tommy Waters, Esther Kia Aina, and Matthew Wire, to investigate matters relating to the city's real property taxation. Members, we have a proposed hand-carried OCS 2023-031-3/31/2023 4:21 p.m. submitted by myself that makes the following amendments. It amends the title to clarify that only certain measures relating to real property taxation will be considered by the intermittent interaction group. In the be it resolved clause, it narrows the authority of the real property taxation permitted interaction group to investigate matters relating to real property tax bills seeking to amend the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021. And C, makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. So members, in clause B, or item amendment B, it takes out things that are not codified, I guess I would say, in the revised ordinances, like all the bills that we talked about before this resolution. For example, it won't include the one-time tax credit. It won't include setting the real property tax rates, which we need to do for our budget bill, for fiscal year budget. Okay, any questions? Okay, all right. If I could have Director Kawano come up. I know this is not related to you, but of course you'll be a key person in the discussion for the PIG, and I hope that when we do set up the meetings that you'll be open to being there to discuss all the things that we have, right?
Yes, we are open to discussion, transparency, and to work together with council members.
Thank you. Before I move to discussion, members, I would like to start off with that. Over the last 2 years in active bills, we have close to 30 measures relating to real property taxes. We have both, and Councilmember says, like, there's exemptions, there's credits that we have to look at. There's a lot of relief bills. There's things that we need to discuss. And sometimes if we pass one out after the other, sometimes we may cancel it out. Let's say I will pass my Bill 20 from 2021 out. I may or may not be canceling something that it may affect the Bill 29 or 29 or 27 that is relating to residential A as well. So there are a lot of complexities, a lot of things that have, a lot of the bills have fiscal implications, as is mentioned, but also we have discussions and data about how much revenue was taken in for this past year. How much does that last us? How much will that provide cover and relief for this fiscal year? But how can we be able to implement the long-term and long-standing tax relief that needs to be implemented moving forward as well? with that, I do want to thank all the members that do provide all these real property tax bills from 2021 till this year. These are huge discussions and huge things that if I were to put close to 30 items on my agenda to talk about for every hearing, I probably would have to have a special committee meeting every single day of this week, if anything. And I'm open to doing that, actually. You know, if let's say we have this PIG and we want to have special meetings, let's meet a whole week through to even discuss these things. So this is what this PIG will be open for. Members, clear out your schedules because we will be having to meet meticulously to go over all these items because this is something that's super serious. The 4 members are going to be having to meet hours and hours on end to get out something that will be able to provide something, even if it's not all of the 26 bills, let's say it's 2, but 2 that provides real meaningful tax relief for our neighbors. So anyway, that's what this permanent interaction group is. We are very, very limited. You know, I envy how Councilmember Say, I envy how Council Chair Waters and even Councilmember Okimoto were able to come together at the state legislature and talk about these things without restrictions. But our permanent interaction group is our way to do this by lawfully so that we can discuss these things, yeah? Okay, so with that, we are in discussion. Oh, sorry, okay. Councilmember Say.
Madam Chair, I have the faith and trust in you and the interactive committee, so go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Kiaina.
You're scaring me, Chair. I'm wondering if I should offer a CD1 to put someone else on the PIG.
Welcome to amendments and.
So let me, well, first of all, thank you for your leadership, both for what you moved out today as well as the formation of the PIG. It seems a little overwhelming for me, but I know that you have a plan for us. I just, I'm a little worried about the time frame. So for the second half of April, I'm not going to be available. And so as soon as you determine a schedule in concert with the staff, maybe we can start mapping that out. My time is your time, starting May 1st. So I have a greater flexibility, but prior to the 17th, we could, I have some time as well. So I just wanted to let you know my time frame. Look forward to the dialogue. And I'm just hoping, however, that because some of this is very contentious, we're not going to know answers about fiscal implications. I would hate for it to impede the forward movement of the tax credit as well as the homeowner's exemption. If we agree in the PIG that we need not hold it up, you know, part of legislating is determine whether you do it comprehensively or parceling it out. It's a strategy that all levels of government do. Same, we're dealing with that on Bill 10, the land use ordinance. But having said that, there are certain issues that can be addressed immediately and need not be held up. And so if the PIG is going to go on for a while and has to still go through a series of meetings, for me, that is time. And since we have measures that are on the verge of final reading, or I just want to make sure that we factor that in, that, okay, because we may not know all the answers in the PIG.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And in Chair's response, you know, I've had the opportunity to take participate in a PIG with Councilmember Say, where we were able to get a report out within a month and a half, and this was for hiring our city auditor, right? And so we were able, just as long as we can remain focused and know that PIGs can occur throughout the rest of the year, right? This PIG sounds daunting because there are currently 26 bills, right? We do have to recognize that also doing it measure by measure right now, it takes all of us to figure out, okay, we just passed this one out from December. And then we have this. How is this going to affect this? So I really want to be able to see everything as a whole, figure out what we can tackle on first, and then I can talk about this further with the pig. But basically, like really figure out. I know that, Councilmember Kiana mentioned that there's comprehensive versus like taking things up that are that need to be addressed at the moment, but knowing which ones to move forward first, we do need to start comprehensively too. So thank you. All right. Any other comments, Councilmember Okimoto?
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate you explaining your reasoning for this group. I just had a quick question, and maybe you can help me, because I was really grateful for Director Kawano and his team to be here today. It really helped me out to understand the things that will be taken on in full council and that you are addressing in this budget committee. Is there a way that, without volunteering, but that they could be a part of the discussion as you guys are meeting? Because what he shared today was really helpful just for me to sit and observe and participate in listening.
Thank you. Absolutely. They are 100% already willing to provide all the information that we need, all the data, and also be a part of the discussion.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Director.
Okay. Members, any other discussion? Okay. And I do have to mention that if you do have any amendments, Councilmember Kia Aina, I can't start setting a schedule until we actually approve it in April, and I think it's April 19. So yeah, so if you do have amendments, either let me know or propose it for the FD1.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I have no amendments.
Oh, okay.
I was just joking that I was
Oh,
going
you were
to switch
joking.
myself
Okay.
out and have another person be on it.
She's like, okay, relay race, let's go. Okay, thank you. With that, wait, I still gotta go for remote testifiers. Okay, first off, we don't have any registered remote testifiers, but I do see we have Miss Angela Young here to testify, not here, but online to testify remotely.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES. So matters for investigation for the permitted action group. We're going to say these comments. So it's from testimony from the Hawaii Appleseed Center for Law and Economic Justice. And it was for the support of HB 1208, proposing a constitutional amendment relating to the functions, powers, and duties of real property tax. And in their testimony, they said that, while most states use the real property tax to fund education, Hawaii does not. Hawaii does not use real property tax to fund education. And this is something that in an informal conversation, I heard HSTA, when I was talking to HSTA, they told me about. Hawaii is one of the only states that does not have real property tax to fund education. And some of the reasoning as I read through the testimonies could be that because Hawaii's living expenses are already expensive, Hawaii's housing is already skyrocketing through the roof. But from another document, the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy.
Ms. Young, your time has been up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, members, we will now move on to in-person testimony. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to testify in person? Okay, but seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Okay, members, we're in discussion. Okay. I had a discussion, but I forgot it. Okay, all right. The chair recommends that Resolution 23-40 be amended to the hand-carried CD1. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 23-40 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussions? Okay, members, I do thank everyone for allowing us to utilize what little power we have to convene together through a PIG so that we can discuss this. I look forward to doing this expeditiously but thoroughly as well. And then when we take up these bills and then recommit them back, that we be able to provide really great relief, really great meaningful relief for taxpayers, but also being able to prioritize, like our members have been saying, as well as the administration, to provide core services. Okay. All right. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.